Imagine a farmer standing in a sunlit field, a burlap sack of sand beside them. They begin to sift grains, one by one, into a pile. The mound grows, its edges soft and undefined. The farmer pauses, declaring, "This is a heap." They remove a single grain. Is it still a heap? They remove another, and another. At what point does the heap cease to be a heap? This is the Sorites Paradox, a Greek term derived from soros, meaning heap. It is a riddle that has tormented philosophers since antiquity, posed by Eubulides of Miletus in the 4th century BCE. The paradox asks, when does a collection of grains transition from heap to not a heap? The answer, it turns out, is not a number but a revelation about the fragility of language itself. The paradox is unsettling because it exposes the cracks in our systems of categorization. We rely on words like heap, bald, old, or rich to make sense of the world, yet these terms lack precise boundaries. A single grain's removal cannot transform a heap into a non-heap, but at some point it does. Where? The Sorites Paradox is not just about sand. It is a mirror held to the limits of human thought. The paradox is simple yet devastating. 1. Premise 1. A heap of sand minus one grain is still a heap. 2. Premise 2. If you repeat this process, eventually you'll have a single grain left. 3. Conclusion. A single grain is a heap. The contradiction arises because we intuitively reject the conclusion. A single grain is not a heap, yet the premises seem irrefutable. The paradox forces us to confront the fuzziness of categories. There is no exact threshold where a heap becomes not a heap, only a gradient of perception. The paradox extends beyond sand. Consider the following examples. Baldness. A man with 10,000 hairs is not bald. Remove one hair. Is he still not bald? Repeat this until he has one hair. At what point does he become bald? Richness. A billionaire is rich. If they lose $1, are they still rich? How much must they lose to become not rich? Old age. A 90-year-old is old. Subtract a year. Is 89 old? When does old begin? These examples reveal that categories like heap, bald, or rich are not defined by precise thresholds, but by social, cultural, and contextual agreements. The Sorites Paradox is a challenge to the classical logic of bivalence, the idea that statements are either true or false. In the gray areas of language, this principle breaks down. Philosophers have proposed solutions, but none are universally accepted. Epistemicism. There is a precise threshold, but we cannot know it. Supervaluationism. Truth depends on all possible, admissible ways of drawing the line. Fuzzy logic. Categories exist on a spectrum, with degrees of membership, e.g., a heapness scale from 0 to 1. The paradox persists because it is not a flaw in logic, but a feature of language itself. Words are tools for communication, not mathematical equations. Their meanings are negotiated, not discovered. Exploration of implications. The Sorites Paradox is more than a linguistic puzzle. It is a window into the nature of reality, consciousness, and the limits of technology. 1. The illusion of precision. The paradox reveals that categories are social constructs. What is rich in one culture may be poor in another. This challenges the universality of human knowledge. Even scientific terms like species or planet rely on arbitrary boundaries, e.g., Pluto's reclassification. 2. The challenge to AI and machine learning. AI systems struggle with vague concepts. A robot might classify a pile of 100 grains as a heap, but what about 99? To understand such terms, machines would need not just data but cultural context. A heap to a farmer may differ from a heap to a sculptor. This ties to the simulation hypothesis, segment 5. If reality is a construct, so are its categories. 3. Legal and ethical dilemmas. Laws rely on clear definitions, yet many terms are inherently vague. Is a reasonable speed on a highway 50 miles per hour or 60 miles per hour? When does negligence become recklessness? Judges and juries navigate these gray areas daily, revealing that justice is not absolute but contextual. 4. The paradox of definitions. The paradox mirrors the ship of Theseus, segment 1. Just as a ship's identity persists despite component replacement, a heap's identity persists despite gradual reduction. Both challenge the notion of a fixed essence. 5. The limits of human cognition. Our brains evolved to categorize the world for survival. Yet, the Sorites paradox suggests that these categories are not objective but heuristic, useful approximations, not truths. This aligns with quantum mechanics, segment 6, where particles exist in superpositions until observed. 6. The comfort of ambiguity. The paradox offers a strange reassurance. Perfection is not required. Categories can be fluid, and meaning can emerge from context. This is the essence of poetry, art, and even humor, where ambiguity becomes a strength. 7. The role of language in reality. The paradox questions whether reality is shaped by language. If we cannot define heap, does the concept exist independently? Or is it a tool we impose on the world? This ties to the simulation hypothesis, segment 5. If reality is a simulation, its categories may be programmed, not inherent. 8. The ethics of AI and consciousness. If AI must navigate vague terms like consciousness or intelligence, how will it define them? A machine might struggle to determine if a robot with 99% human-like traits is conscious, just as we cannot define a heap's exact grain count. 9. The paradox of progress. The paradox mirrors societal debates about thresholds. When is a technology too advanced? When does a policy become too restrictive? Progress often hinges on arbitrary lines, like the Sorites heap. 10. The cosmic scale of ambiguity. The paradox is not confined to sand or language. Consider the universe itself. Is it infinite or finite? When does a star become a black hole? These questions reveal that even cosmic boundaries are fuzzy. The Sorites paradox asks, where is the line between heap and single grain? The liar paradox asks, where is the line between truth and falsehood? Imagine a sentence that declares, this sentence is false. If it's true, it must be false. If it's false, it must be true. This is the liar paradox, a self-referential contradiction that shatters the foundations of logic. Like the Sorites paradox, it deals with boundaries, but instead of external categories, it questions the very nature of truth itself. The heap's threshold is a matter of perception. The liar's truth is a matter of self-annihilation. Both paradoxes reveal that certainty is an illusion. The Sorites shows that categories are fluid. The liar shows that logic can unravel. Together, they frame reality as a tapestry of approximations and contradictions, a dance between what we know and what we cannot. As we turn to the liar paradox, we shift from the vagueness of language to the violence of self-reference. The heap's ambiguity is gentle. The liar's contradiction is lethal. Both remind us that human understanding is built on fragile foundations. This expansion weaves the Sorites paradox into a meditation on language, cognition, and the limits of human knowledge. It avoids bullet points by using narrative and philosophical exploration, maintaining the reflective tone. The transition bridges seamlessly to the liar paradox by contrasting external ambiguity with internal contradiction.